Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Tattoos and Toddlers podcast. Now, I am troubleshooting what's going on with Spotify. I'm waiting for them to figure out their website so I can get all these episodes back up on Spotify and all the places that you like to listen, including the Amazon link and the iHeartRadio links. So yeah, bear with me as episodes are going up on YouTube now, but I will be figuring things out as I go. So welcome again to the Tattoos and Toddlers podcast. This is our next episode with a dear friend of mine who I've known for a really, really, really long time. It's my friend Becky. Welcome, Becky.
Hi, how is everybody?
We're doing good because we're coming off Thanksgiving week, right? Like a variety yeah. So many of us we celebrated differently this year. We've swapped it up every year since I've had a family thing going on with my kid and all that stuff. But how was your Thanksgiving week and what are you thankful for today?
Oh, hit me with that question. Well, Thanksgiving week was fun. I actually spent it with Tiffany and her family, which is another mutual friend of ours. Um, just because I'm the only one really in Dallas. Family's pretty much spread out all over the place. So, um, yeah, so it was just different. It
So we
wasn't,
had a Friendsgiving.
yes, to spend it with her family. Um, as far as what I'm thankful for, ooh, I think I said the other day that I was thankful for family, friends, and my four-legged child at home. So, yeah, I'm just thankful for the people that I have closest to me right now. Ones that'll challenge me, ones that'll do the fun stuff that I don't want to do.
Yeah, of course. And we've been friends long enough to know that there's a variety of personalities we attract into our lives, and we have different energy levels. We have different ways of looking at life. We've all been through different things. And another reason why I wanted to have Becky on today is number one, she has a very unique voice out in this world. And she has yet to explore opportunities for that voice in unique ways. And so I said, well, why don't you just come on to this little podcast here where we can talk about things where your voice is sort of amplified, right?
Yeah, and of
And
course,
she's like, super nervous, no big deal.
and I agree to it, and I'm like, yes, gung ho, and then all of a sudden today, my stomach does. I'm like, just breathe, like just talk. This is you're talking to Jen. It's not like anything else. I mean, you just talk to her like normal.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I like doing here on this podcast. Anyways, that no matter who I have on, whether it's somebody I've known for 20 years or 2 minutes, I'm just gonna talk to you like a real person because we're all real people. Um, a good chunk of our thought process about this episode was heavily centered around one of your tattoos. I remember that because when I first met Becky, she had the most interesting tattoos in the most interesting places. I remember the one on your foot, but I also know that there's one that we talked about that we wanted to discuss on this episode when it has to do with our grandparents. And for for many of y'all out there that may have already seen your loved ones pass on, or you still have them alive, just be forewarned, we're going to talk about our grandparents, whether they are here with us or not. Um, Becky and I probably believe we always have a little bit of them with us anyway, especially genetically. So, Becky, I want to start with your grandma. What did your grandma mean to you? Let's start with little Becky growing up from all the way then to now. Tell us a little bit more about your grandma and her influence in your life?
So, my grandmother was pretty much in my life my whole childhood up until I was like 16. When my mom and I moved out, um, pretty much she was always like the protector, like always the protector, always like like almost like my covering. Like she just did things that I look at now as like, even though she's gone and she's been gone for over 10 years now, I think coming up on 12, you know, that even she was the grandmother of prayer. Like she prayed over me, she spoke over me, she watched over me, she did all these different things as I was growing up, um, and always did protect me. And that's always what I remembered, and just like we were talking about earlier was, traditions and things like that. She's the one that I know that always had the traditions in family, and she was the glue that kind of held our family together. Um, and then it just so happens that I'm like I was saying earlier, I'm making her chicken dressing just because that's something that even just the smell
Yeah.
reminds me of her and what we would always used to do in the kitchen, because she always included me in it. Like it was always cutting the green onions and cutting the celery and cutting the, green bell peppers or whatever it was. Or if I was going to help debone the chicken, I could debone chicken with her. Um, but it wasn't just those things. It was the little things that she did with me. Um, as I was growing up, like she taught me how to count money, like coins and things like that. She taught me how to do a lot of that stuff. And yeah, she was a pretty pivotal point, for me at least, as the person that, even though now that I'm 39, almost 40, oh, it it's a big deal because I still feel like the prayers that she prayed over me back then and as I got older into my 20s, they still resonate today. And I honestly think that some of those things have protected me from a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have thought about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and there's something about that grandparent relationship too versus our parents. And I know that we all have had our experiences with grandparents. I know that my husband has. His experience with the grandparents was very hands-on and stuff like that too, where they were cooking or farming or whatever. And me, I was so separated from a lot of my grandparents, I didn't get to be in their everyday lives. However, I hold a huge hole in my heart that is completely filled with all the grandparents I have had and still have in my life because I feel like they're a piece of me, no matter how much time I get to spend with them. So when it comes to the decision that you made for this tattoo, like, where does that come from? First of all, tell us what the tattoo is, and I kind of want to know the backstory of how that came to be.
Well, I don't mind showing it either. So
Well,
it's
yeah, yeah. So everybody on video, go take a look. It's
it's
a statement piece, y'all. This is a huge statement piece.
yeah,
Like Becky here.
it's a sunflower.
Yeah.
Um, or I did it. I honestly, to be honest, I really didn't even know that it would have been pertaining to her at that moment.
So you just you what you
I
found it on the wall, or you're like, oh, this is
found
cool.
I was like, I love sunflowers and I love you are my sunshine.
Yeah.
Now, she did always say that to me.
Oh.
So when that comes across, it was always like she would call me her little sunshine, you know, because I always when I woke up as a kid, I always woke up with a smile on my face and I was always happy go lucky. And she always like she would call me good morning sunshine, or she would say my little sunshine, or she would say how much do you love me, and she would put her arms all the way out and she goes this much, and I was like no, and she'd like this much, and I would be like no, and then I'd do this much, and she would, I mean, it would just go into a big hug. But with this tattoo, I love sunflowers and I love the saying. And then all of a sudden, it was one of those things where I did it. And then as I was driving away, oh, I went, okay. I said, this is something pertaining to her, because a lot of the tattoo, like I only have 4 tattoos, but each one of them, the one on the inside of my right ankle is supposed to be a rabbit paw print that I bought back in when I was like, and I'm like, this don't look nothing like that, y'all. But it was for my grandfather with my grandfather's initials.
Mm.
And just like little ones. And then I have a lotus on the top of my left foot. And then on my left forearm, I have God is enough.
Hmm.
And it's just those types of things, like in my mind, Now, granted, are there some that I would take back and do a little different? I probably would, but they're there and it still signifies a reminder. So for this one, just
Yeah.
because sunflowers and how I love them, I even told him to do it specifically, like um I didn't want it fully shaded in yellow. So he
Yeah.
just did around where the seeds were and out a little bit and did shading with it. And that was it. I didn't want it to be like flamboyantly yellow. Like I didn't want to be bright. I just wanted it to be subtle enough. And then he actually wrote it out. So he wrote it out in his own handwriting instead of me having. If I could have, now looking back, I probably would have done a little different and I would have found her handwriting.
Yeah.
I would have had him use her lettering for it now that I look back on it. But still, it has significance for that. And of course, it's closer to the heart too. So, yeah.
Very much closer to the heart. I mean, you're the kind of person who is a very much kind of a thinker person, right? Like you do a lot of thinking. So for you to go out, like, what was the timeline on this tattoo? Which one was this? Was like one, two, three, or four? When did you
Actually,
get?
it was three
So it was
because,
the third one.
because the one on my forearm and the one on my shoulder, I got done at the same time. So they were literally, I got this one done and then I got the one on my arm right after. So it was third.
Wow. So this is like towards, you've already had one done before, so you knew what to expect, all that good stuff.
Very
So,
much so.
so that's really cool that, and I think I told you like one of my newer ones like 2 years ago, I was designing it on the way to the tattoo parlor because I just felt like it was something that it was very, very, very meaningful. And the more I designed it, the more I walked into the tattoo parlor with the idea and the concept. And then I worked with the artist to make it what it is now,
Yeah.
and which was really cool to have all these little bits and pieces of ideas come together so I can clearly say this is what this means and this is why I have it on here. And yours is very to the point too. Like a sunflower is a very big statement piece, and the words is also a very like to the point
Yeah.
when you're doing that. And does it open conversation? Because it's not always visible. Do you like, unless you're wearing a tank top or something, right? Like
Yeah. If I'm wearing something that's like low enough, you'll
yeah.
see the letters will peek through and they'll be like across because technically it's right off my collarbone.
Yeah. And do you find yourself in conversations with strangers about it if they see it? Or does that happen very often?
It actually doesn't as much as I would think. I mean,
Uh-huh.
sure, like after I first got it, I got questions. I have had people say that they like it. It's never been a topic of conversation of like why or what was the purpose or is it for something specific?
Yeah.
Um, nobody's actually ever asked anything. But yeah, then I wear when I wear tank tops, it's during the summer.
Yep.
And then if I'm wearing like an upper like shirt, you're never gonna see it. If I'm wearing a t-shirt, you never see it. Um, I do love when I wear a tank top though, because because I actually can show it off, and it's not something because it's not like I hide it on purpose. Like it's just I like summer. I'm not a really big summer person, but I like summertime just because I can wear tank tops more and it can be visible more. And it's just, and at this point now, I never really even think about it. I just throw a shirt on and I'm out the door. And all of a sudden I look down, I'm like, yeah, you got that showing. Hey.
Yeah, and that for me 2 years ago, it was a big deal to be visible. Like, I don't know. We were talking about visibility too, like the people that hide in the backgrounds and how even though my persona and my hair and all these interesting things about me makes people think that I am super extroverted and like super like, I gotta be noticed. It's actually the opposite for me half the time. Like I'm in between those worlds of the introvert and the extrovert to where sometimes I'm just like I don't want to be looked at or seen, but then I'm like, oh, on the other side, I do want to be looked at and seen.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
so tattoos tend to bring in conversation if they're visible, and that was why it took me so long to be visibly
Yeah.
showing tattoos. And it's not because I was trying to hide them either. It was like, well, most of them are on the back side, which I never really reveal anyway. So it's like I have all this work I've done, but nobody's ever seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and it's true though. It's like things just have a tendency to stay hidden sometimes. But it's like for me, I mean, and I know this was a topic of conversation too, was staying in the shadows. Like
Yes.
me,
Yes.
that is the biggest thing for me where it's like you're not like, woohoo, I want to be out there. Like I'm okay with being here. But the hard part for me is that I know what I'm called to do is being out in front of,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be. And it's so
And
silly.
it's genuine. Yeah, but it's genuine though because how many people do I know that are so much like you that their hearts are so big and they just want to do the
Yeah.
things and make a difference in the world, but they're usually behind the scenes until somebody calls them out in the middle of the audience like, "Well, hey, we just want to publicly thank you and embarrass you because you did the thing."
I was like, yeah, I'm not one of those people where I'm like, if I'm doing something and I'm doing it behind the scenes, I'm like, please don't call me out. Just let me be. Let me go unnoticed, please. Like, you can thank me, great, but please don't embarrass me. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I have found myself being the person that's like, I'll just stay over here.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, part of the reason why we're doing this today is because I am the one who's like, I've stayed hidden behind people. I've stayed hidden behind you and
Yeah.
behind Tiffany and behind other people. And I don't know why I do it. It's just one of those things where I'm like, you like to stay. It's like you're in the shadows just because you don't want to be out there in front of everybody. But the thing is, the calling you have, you're going to end up having to be out there in front of anybody anyway.
It's like start getting used to it.
Yes. I'm like, so when the opportunity arose for me to do this with you, I was like, yes. And yet again, last night, I was like, you know what? I said, maybe I should ask her to do this at the beginning of January. And then I thought, no, you're just having a conversation with a friend, honey. Like,
Yeah.
just go. And the thing is you're right. I do have a lot to say. And a lot of the times I don't say it. And it's just, I don't know if it's out of fear of what somebody's going to think or what somebody's going to say, or if I'm not going to say it right. And then I think, no, that's not correct either. Because the thing is, even if it's one person who hears it and understands and sees it and says, okay, if she can get out there and do a podcast, even though it's with a friend that I've known for 20 plus years, then it'll open doors for other things too eventually. But it's like, okay, well, you have to start the ball rolling at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that because I really do love the concept of talking about staying in the shadows of other people. This is a concept that is not new. This is something that happens every day to every single person on the planet somewhere is hiding in the shadows who they really are. And hiding their brilliance, actually. Like, you're almost like, that meme that goes around that says you're dimming your light for other people. Like,
Yeah.
there's no like, and I only know this because I've lived it too in the last, what, 4 years now. Like only I have started the ball rolling with myself. So you've known me for years, but you haven't known me in this way and how much we have unlocked inside of us, right? So that's kind of why I wanted to have this today is because like, well, I know there's so much inside of you and I know there's so much to unlock and just let
Yeah.
forth. But the easy way in is to talk about our stories, our
Yeah.
what people mean to us, what we've learned from other people, what we've learned from our grandparents, how we symbolize things in our life for our family or whatever traditions that we tend to hold dear to our hearts, even if it's just a memory and it's no longer done anymore. Um, but yeah, when it comes to hiding in the shadows, like what would you tell somebody that's just like you that was like, I don't even know what to do with myself. I don't know where to go. Like I want to use my voice, but I'm hesitant to do all the things. And I know that you're beginning to see the value in your voice. What would you tell somebody that's similar to you right now that has all these gifts and talents and things that are just hiding in the shadows?
Ooh,
I know.
that's that's a deep question.
Well, we know we like deep conversation, so I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
So, I mean, for me, I've always, eh, I was the little girl that liked to hide. Like, yes, even though I was out there and I was so much fun and I was this, that, and the other, at some point in my life, something switched. The flip of the switch happened, and all of a sudden, I didn't feel either number one, that I was confident enough, my confidence dropped, or I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to have a conversation or to, yes, I can have conversations with my friends until I'm blue in the face and I can say things out loud and it's understood. But then there are the people who don't know me that I want I guess I want them to know that side of me, even though I'm terrified of it. But
Yeah.
if I say anything to anybody who is in the same boat, I mean, number one is finding out why for me is why am I stagnant or why am I staying to myself or why did I get to this? How did I get to this point of wanting to stay hidden out of fear or out of inadequacy or out of whatever reason it was? How and why did it happen? How did it get to that point of me just being okay with staying hidden? Because the thing is that we all have a voice, whether it's creatively in art, creatively in writing, creatively in music, um, just being who you are and talking and speech. You know, we all have something that is shown throughout our lives. Like you have not just your photography, you have your art, which I have an art piece of yours that I still have.
Oh, yay.
And, you know, I, and even, you know, other people have certain things. And sometimes it can get to a point where you feel like, especially like, I'm going to use you and Tiffany, for instance, because I love you guys, but I also need to say it. You like, it's just one of those things where sometimes we can go, oh, well, we're not good enough.
Based upon our
I'm,
comparisons to our other friends, our close friends, or our
yeah,
other peers, right?
yeah, being the life of comparison is the killer, right? So
So why
if
would you come forward, right? Like, what's the point?
exactly, but for me, it's like I look at it and I go, I know what I'm called to do, but then there's the side of it that I feel like I'm not good enough. Or I look at you and I go, okay, well, Jen's got her art and she's got her photography and she's got this, that, and the other. Now she's got a podcast. And I'm going, okay, you got to stop that. Or Tiffany, her writing. Tiffany's always been a writer. Like, but those are the things that I just go to where I just stay hidden because I don't feel like I'm flamboyant enough, if that makes sense. Like I'm not the loud friend. I'm not the loud one. I'm a very observant person. I sit back, I watch, I listen, I pay attention to, and I just go from there. But for the people who are dealing with the same things, it's just one of those things where I look at it and I go, really and truly, you're important too. Whatever you have to say is important. Whatever you need to say, whatever you need to do, whatever you need to write down, doesn't matter what kind of creativity you have, just do it. I mean, I'm nervous as all get out right now, but I'm getting easier with it. But it's just one of those things that I'm like, no, we don't. I mean, the choice is yours. And if you allow comparison to do its thing, then it steals you of it robs you of what you should be doing.
I
So,
think And I think there's a lot of people that resonate with, well, first of all, there's many other personalities just like you that are so like thoughtful, deep, you know you have things you want to do, there's things you're seeking out, and then but they get stuck in that comparison. However, so many of us, like today, is one monumental step for you to step out, use your voice, which I'm very proud of you,
Thank you.
in a way that it comes in different packages, right? Like some people only seek a stage.
Yeah.
I'm the person who, you remember in the back in the day, I'd run the small groups. I was like, if one person shows up, I'm ready for that one person, right? If you're ready for the one person, you're ready for the 100. If you're
Yeah.
ready for the 100, maybe you're ready for the 1,000. I don't know. Like, I don't really honestly know how it works. I just know that when we show up with our voice, there's something that releases in us that actually can help other people and can also, you can connect with other people
Yeah.
to be seen. It's not like an obsessive, hey, look at me. But there's something about being seen by other people
Yeah.
and sharing that connection of thought, heart, creativity, all these cool things that we get to do as human beings and spiritual beings that
Yeah.
it's kind of exciting if we break it down to the raw nature of who we are and who we are created to be. And I think that's why also we've been friends for so long because we'll have long conversations just about whatever.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. Some of the best ones too. And that's the one thing for me is like I can have a conversation and be talking about something and be like, okay, well, and all of a sudden I have an answer for what I had a conversation about. I was like, I don't know what to do. Ah.
Yeah, and those of us who love to externally process too, like we just talk it out and we come to our own solutions.
Right.
Which is great, and a good piece of why I also had you on today is just to, let the world see a little bit more of your story and the things that make you you and the choices that you've made to like tattoo your body with this ideas and the very deep meanings mostly behind some of your tattoo work, but also just who you are as a person and a voice. And I wanted to circle back to your other tattoo for a grandparent. Can we go over that real quick? Because I just know that there's something about when we get tattoos for honoring other people, regardless if we knew it or not.
Yeah.
Was it for your grandfather, you said?
Mhm.
Tell me
Yep.
about that one too.
Well, I always knew rabbit feet were like, I don't remember 100% because it's been like,
A
I mean,
gazillion years.
it's been like 25, 26 because he passed when I was 13.
Oh,
So I believe, I can't remember if he liked rabbits or if it was the rabbit foot that he liked. And he always, and I wanted to get something in commemoration, like for him. And then I just put his initials on the inside of my right ankle. Um,
so what was the significance and connection with him that was different from your grandma? I guess is my next question.
I mean, for him, there's a long story that goes with him that, I mean, I'll digress on it, but it goes way back to when I was still in utero, um, with him and my mother. So there, I won't go into that, but with him, even with everything that happened as I got older, he always, he had a way about him. And I would have never known any of that stuff had happened because of how much he reflected his love toward me.
Mm,
I would have never known, wouldn't have even thought about it. I mean, except for I heard, you know, um, and the things, that happen for
yeah.
whatever reason. So, I don't know. My grandfather, he would always make jokes. He would always crack jokes. Um, I mean, it's so ridiculous if I even say this out loud, but he lost, I think, down to like his first knuckle on his, I think it was his middle finger. I can't remember which hand though, but he had lost it. And every single time I would see him, I would ask him what happened. He goes, an alligator got it.
So you had a different story for every time?
Pretty much. And I eventually found out the real reason. No, isn't a fan, not a good thing. But it was just he would always make jokes and things like that. And I don't know, there was something about him where my grandmother was always there.
Yeah.
Like I said, me and my mom lived with her until I was 15, 16.
Yeah.
My grandfather, however, like he was just, I don't know, there was just something about him and I loved him dearly. Like I can still see his face, I can still remember even though it's been that long. Um yeah, no, I remember the little things like he actually came and spent Thanksgiving with us, the Thanksgiving before he passed.
Hmm.
Like, and that was the first time he had ever been up here because we lived in Carrollton at the time. That was the first time that he had ever been up here. And I had my dog Samson at the time, and he asked if he could take him home. And I said no, because I literally got Sam for my 13th birthday. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say it's nice to see that these tattoos bring you good feelings, of course. Like we wouldn't want to get a tattoo that would always bring us to a sad space all the time, but
yeah,
even though our loved ones have passed, we have these great memories
yeah.
of them.
There's always something with them. Like my grandfather always had those little things, but it was that hard time because it was like his time was cut short with all of his grandkids.
Yeah.
I was 13. I had an older cousin. I can't remember how much older he was than me, maybe late 70s. I can't really remember. But for that was that. But then I've got my grandmother who would always call me and be like, hey, just calling to chit chat. Call me back when you get a chance. And
Aw.
I still remember that. And I'm like, I used to have a voicemail of her voice saying that, but I mean, I don't even have it anymore. But it's just those little things that add to it that kind of make the tattoos a little more a memory.
Yeah.
Remember them by.
And I love that.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we've got to start wrapping up our call here. We've got this episode's about to be wrapped up, and what I like to do in these last couple of minutes is just kind of leave people with something to think about for their week, their month, the rest of the year. When this is being recorded, it's just after Thanksgiving of 2024, and we're kind of going into this new year. What do we want to leave with them today, Becky? Like, we've had these great conversations about our grandparents, using our voices, staying in the shadows versus coming into the lights. What do you want to leave with somebody today?
Um, well, there's one thing, we'll pray too, but there's one thing that I'll say is that number one, if you still have your grandparents, enjoy them, spend time with them, question them, ask them questions, learn your history, learn the things that you need to learn. Um, Enjoy it, enjoy the time that you have, because I mean, unfortunately, once it's gone, it's just memories at that point. Because I still remember things she's told me, my grandmother, about family history and stuff. The other thing that I would leave you guys with is don't cut yourself short, honestly. Like, if you have something to say it. Like, really. I mean, because we all have a voice. We all have something to say. We all have something that we need to do, whether it's to one person or whether it's to a crowd. Um, if it impacts one, it trickles. So it's going to impact others because that person will remember what you said and then they'll say it to somebody else. It's almost like a somebody had came up with this thing and it was talking about ripples where you take your pebble and you throw it in the water. And I was listening to a message when I went to Missouri to see my cousin, and he was talking about that. And he says, you never know the ripples that you will make. and what those ripples will do by affecting one person. That one person affects somebody else, that one person affects somebody else, and then it just keeps rippling out. And he used history as a thing. And he said also in the Bible, he was like, certain people in the Bible, they caused ripples throughout history. So if I could say something is, don't be worried about what you say, how you say it, or when you say it. Just say it, because you have no idea what your words will do and how they will impact a generation. So there you go.
And with that, I think we have come to the end of this episode, and I want to thank you so much for stepping out and using your voice.
Thank you.
And thank you for trusting me to lead you through this little process here of just talking with you.
Yeah. It's like,
But yeah, so we did it. Yay. And to everybody listening on this episode, I just want to thank you for being a listener today. Remember that your voice does matter. Like, no, regardless if you're ever on any platform whatsoever, if you are out in your community and you need to speak to somebody and just really encourage them and take them on a journey of finding who they are and opening up the things that have been locked up inside of them, those are the conversations that matter. So go have some good conversation with some of your community, and I will see you on the next episode of Tattoos and Toddlers. Thank you, Becky, for coming.
thank you for having me. Bye.